Good evening, or hello from wherever or whenever you are. This is the Ekklesia, an online community of reflection and faith. And this is intended to be an online gathering for anyone of any degree of belief or disbelief in anything. My name is Craig Bartlett, and I provide these meditations for anyone who wishes to listen or use them as a guide to reflection or meditation. So, welcome to anyone who may be watching wherever you are on the World Wide Web. And I hope that you will find that this time of meditation and reflection is helpful for you. So, as per usual, we will take the time to center ourselves. So just take the next few moments to breathe. Find a spot on the wall, one in front of you that you can concentrate on. And breathe. And you don't have to try and breathe in any particular way. Don't try to heave your shoulders or anything. Just become aware of the way you breathe. And just enter the moment where you are. There may be things happening around you. There may be noises around you. You may have certain sensations where you are sitting right now. These are all normal. They're all part of the moment that you are in. That's part of what it means to be truly here. And as I've said before, don't try to heave your shoulders or breathe in a particular way. Just see if you can use your diaphragm in breathing, as if the breathing is coming from the bottom of your belly. And take a moment so that you can acknowledge that you are truly in this moment with everything that may be happening around you, with whatever sensations or feelings you might be feeling right now. They're all part of where you are and what you are right now. And so it's my hope, my prayer, if you'd like to say that I hope that you are truly here in this moment and this time with me, with us, with whoever may be watching, whenever they might be watching. And that this time may truly be a blessing to you. Today, May 17th, is the day that is normally recognized as the International Day against homo, bi, intersex, or transphobia. It is a day when we remember that we are committed to ending and standing against any and all forms of homophobia, lesphobia, biphobia, transphobia, of any unnatural or irrational fear of any person who is a sexual or gender minority. So today, we who are here, I who am here, commit that this space will be a safe place. This space will be a safe place where all persons of any sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression will be welcomed and will be affirmed here. This is an integral part of what the Ekklesia is meant to be. And so anyone, no matter who you are, please consider yourself to be welcome here. Now, for today's wisdom reading, I'm continuing on the theme of the final step, the new step towards acceptance in the grief process. Really, it's not really a new step towards acceptance. It's moving beyond acceptance in the grief process, and it is part of the work that David Kessler has been continuing to do, continuing on from the work that he did with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross on the stages of grief. Many of you who are familiar with this will know that the stages of grief the stages of grief don't continue in one straight line from each other. We go back and forth between them all the time. But the stages of grief which we may experience include shock, anger, bargaining, sadness, and then hopefully acceptance. Just an interesting piece of information on this. David Kessler experienced personal grief in his own life when his son died. And as a result of that, he believed it was important to add a sixth stage, a sixth step towards the stages of grief. And I suppose you could say this is moving beyond acceptance, but that we may find new meaning through the processes of coming to accept where we are, to accept our loss in life. And there's a very good interview that he did with a reporter from National Public Radio, and I believe this is part of an installment of the CNN series Amanpour with Christiane Amanpour. I'll try to find the link for it if you like. But this is important because as a result of working through the loss of his own son, David Kessler was able to find new meaning in his work, and that he didn't realize that the death of his son would help him progress to find this new meaning. So, just so that you have the background to this, we're taking the sixth step. The steps in grieving may be endless, but we've managed to find a sixth step now. Or those who have been working on this have found a sixth step now. It's moving towards new meaning. And so over the next few meetings, I hope that we will be able to take some time to think about what new meanings will come in a post-pandemic COVID-19 world. Because the reality is that this is not going away. Consequently, what new meanings will come for us in a post-pandemic COVID-19 world? I want to reflect on one tonight, which is kind of closer to where I live. I'm in South Korea. And so I will share with you some excerpts from a blog post that I did recently. Yes, shameless plug here. I have written a blog over the last few years called My Hue in the Rainbow, which has its roots in my experience as a pastor in an affirming church here in South Korea. And so I think I'd like to share this with you this evening. You might be thinking, who the hell is this guy that he's so arrogant that he thinks that he can share one of his blog posts as a piece of wisdom? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I will take my chances on it, but I hope that you'll find something worthwhile in it. So an excerpt from my post, which I did on May 10th for my blog called My Hue in the Rainbow, and it's called Stone Throwing. Don't even think about it. About 2.7% of the total COVID-19 cases in Korea are non-Shincheonji church related. In spite of this, some churches just haven't been taking it seriously, to the point of a church pastor being detained and his church fined for defying government orders and holding church services. There have also been 14 cases of COVID-19 linked to a wine bar in Pyeongtaek. Do we now blame it all on the demon alcohol? There were over 100 cases connected with a gym in Cheonan. Have people been railing over the evils of exercise? No one's sinless here, and no person or church or other group has any reason to be smug. Concentrate on people's health by all means, but there is no justification to start a string of stories that suggest being gay is an automatic link to COVID-19 any more than being Christian or being athletically active or enjoying a glass of wine. That is simply walking down the lane of false news. You may have noticed recently that Kang Myung-hwa, the foreign minister for the Republic of Korea, South Korea, has been doing the media rounds. In fact, she did a fairly well-known interview on Deutsche Welle, the German public broadcaster. She was doing it on the English language service of Deutsche Welle. It's easily found on YouTube. So if you look up Kang Myung-hwa, again, I'll put the link up for you if you'd like. And she was talking about the fact that, yes, a recent localized outbreak has occurred in Korea. It's based in Seoul. It's based in the Itaewon area. And it's unfortunately linked to a number of clubs which serve gay men. And a number of conservative media outlets in Korea have seized on this, and they have been talking about how horrible it is that gays and foreigners are spreading the evil COVID-19 virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And the Deutsche Welle reporter, the anchor who was interviewing Minister Kang, was very tough on her. She said, this is okay, is it? It's okay for conservative groups to fixate on this. And to her credit, she said, no, this is not okay. And to her credit, she did say this. Unfortunately, she does have to do a kind of two-faced thing, just as the president of Korea has done, Moon Jae-in. And she said, well, there isn't an open consensus on the status of sexual and gender minorities in South Korea, but it is not okay to be singling them out and discriminating against them. So this is kind of the tightrope that South Korean politicians, particularly of a more liberal or progressive bent, are walking in this time. Although I think it would be, I think it would be more interesting referring to the figures that I referred to in my blog post just there recently. I think it would be very interesting if she would say something like, you know the people who we should be really going after in the midst of this? Bloody wine drinkers. If we could just get people stopping drinking wine, then everything would be fine. Or worse yet, the damned health freaks. If we could get people if we could stop people from going to gymnasiums and health clubs and all that stuff and going after all of this health nonsense, then everything would be fine. But people didn't do that, did they? It so happened that the latest local outbreak happened in a series of bars where gay men are served, and it was a place where it was in a neighborhood where foreigners often frequent, and people just seize on that. This really speaks to the fact that anti-gay, anti-lesbian, anti-sexual, and gender minority feelings are deep-seated in this country. And it doesn't take much in terms of an incident to start this all up again. And it's not unique to this incident. I have a friend who is transgender, a transgender activist, and someone who works with LGBT youth in the Seoul area. She had an apartment, a new apartment of her own, but as soon as her landlord found out that she was transgender, immediately the landlord started pressuring her to move out. And eventually she had to, in order to have some peace of her own. This is the reality of life in South Korea. What people don't seem to realize, or what they choose to frequently forget conveniently, is that this event, this localized outbreak, could have happened in any nightclub, because it was during the time when the government had decided to relax the social distancing procedures. So night spots were opening up again. This could have happened anywhere. But just because it happened in a neighborhood where there are bars which entertain gay men, it just so happened that people seize on this and make it an excuse to give vent to all of the anti-LGBT feelings which they have kept inside, but perhaps felt for some reason that, oh, for the sake of being right or for the sake of sounding good, I won't give vent to them. To me, this is what real political correctness is these days. The idea that people may hold some deep-seated irrational fears or prejudices or bigotry within them, but because it doesn't sound good, because it's not acceptable, because it's not the right thing to say or do in a certain time or a certain place, they'll keep it quiet. But if the right opportunity comes along, well, hell, look out. I believe that this is something which the country in which I live, South Korea, really has to struggle with. They've really got to get over this. This could be an opportunity for even greater suppression of sexual and gender minorities in this country, or it could be a transition to a new time. A transition to a new time where people realize that sexual and gender minorities are just as worthy and just as deserving of the same freedoms that other people enjoy. The right to love people whom they love, the right to have a job without being worried about being fired, the right to live in the housing of their choice without being afraid of being asked to move out. And who knows, maybe even the freedom of marriage registry as well, with all of the benefits that come with that. Now, even liberal politicians in this country will say, well, no, it's not the right time now because we don't have a social consensus. Everyone doesn't agree. I may have talked about this before. But the fact remains that most people in this country, according to the most recent polls, believe that LGBT persons should have the right of being able to work without fear of discrimination. This is a simple fact. And so, if there's anything that I could pray for, or anything that I could ask you to pray for, it's that this country, the Republic of Korea, may move toward a time when we can move beyond this irrational fear of the other. Because this irrational fear is being pushed by a minority. It's a minority that doesn't represent the majority of Koreans. It's a minority that doesn't even represent the majority of religious Koreans. But they are well-heeled. They are well-financed. They are well-resourced. They are well-connected. But it's time for the population of Korea as a whole to say, we're not going to be told by you, minority, what human rights are. So if there's any new meaning for this country, the country in which I live at this time, to come out of this post-pandemic world, I hope that we will be able to move to a place where there is genuine acceptance and affirmation